Hey, Kennesaw Happenings. We are in the studio. We have a special guest, and so we're here at Overture 55 and older, right next to Academy Sports, behind QT and Popeyes. So Sheri came all the way across wherever she came from. She'll tell you because we got our signals crossed, but there's nothing better than being in person. So
Absolutely.
Sheri, tell our viewers who you are, what you do, and who you serve.
Yes. So I'm Sheri Duignan. I am owner of Real Results Realty, which is a real estate investment group. I'm from originally Annapolis, Maryland, but I am actually live in Smyrna, so that's where I was coming from. Thankfully, it's not that far, but I came here because I wanted to talk a little bit about what I'm doing and kind of share. Basically, as a real estate investor, there's a lot of confusion. I think sometimes as I do have my license, but I don't actually do real estate as far as buying and selling, the traditional way. So a lot of people don't understand that a real estate investor is someone who buys property. And there's a lot of different ways you can become an investor. There's passive investors and active investors. So
well, tell our viewers, because it's so interesting when I first knew what you did.
Right.
So, and I know you were explaining that you have business out on the West Coast, and so you've gone back and forth.
Yes.
As an investor, you obviously are not tied down to a geographic area. When you started getting into the business, was there anything that attracted you to that you would have the flexibility to work and be anywhere?
Yes. So I was in the fitness industry for almost 20 years, actually probably longer than that. And we had been taken from Georgia. Actually, at the time we were in Atlanta. My family was all from Maryland, and they took us out to Phoenix at the time, and then over to California, then out to Philly. And long and short of it, we were having to move around a lot, and just unfortunately, we sort of lost, I don't want to say a lot of opportunity to be involved with my nieces and nephews as they were younger, because we were 3,000 miles away.
Mm-hmm.
And so kind of the back end part of it was we had started investing in real estate just with our first rental, because when we moved from Atlanta, we thought we'd want to come back, and we didn't want to sell the home. We wanted to be able to come back to that home. Mm-hmm. So I went down to Home Depot, stuck a Home Depot sign in the yard and said for rent. Back then it was the penny saver, because this was 20 years ago. Looked in the penny saver, found a rent amount, and we rented it out for 10 years. And that kind of got me started as sort of a hobby, I say initially. But with being with LA Fitness and moving around all the time, I just wanted to find something that I wasn't location specific, and I could do from anywhere, and that would open us up to be able to live anywhere, be more involved, travel more, and have more time, time and freedom. So my big goal was to gain back, time freedom and eventually financial freedom.
What would you say? I think that's the essence of everything, is that freedom of being able to do what you want. Because if you do what you love, it's a joy. So you can work as hard as you want, but you're enjoying it.
Yes.
I moved down here many years ago, and I had I was thinking the same thing. So I rented out my home in Richmond.
Okay.
And so I'm down here, and at the time my father-in-law was taking care of it. And there was things coming up, like the lady was going like, I don't have my rent today. Yep. But, and so it was basically, this was what killed the deal.
Yeah.
She said, I mailed you the cash. I said, well, if you aren't smart enough to put a check in the mail and you mail cash. You deserve to lose it. Yeah. But we ended up taking them to court. It was so much of a hassle working long distance on the rental. So did you experience anything like that? Like you're in California and you're trying to negotiate with people that you can't just drive over there.
Yes. Yeah, that was probably the toughest thing initially, especially when I didn't really know what I was doing before I started learning about real estate and actually, becoming kind of a student of real estate. I had some of the same exact mistakes. I didn't really know how to screen people. I had people that weren't paying rent on time. I had repairs that needed to be done. HVAC units would go out. Here it's Atlanta, right? It gets hot and humid, and the air conditioning would go out in the middle of August. So having to reach out and find resources of people that you can connect with that can handle those things while you're away is very, very challenging. Thankfully, in some of the states, I was able to actually find property management companies that I trusted. I went through several that I didn't do well with that, didn't maybe have my best interest in mind, of course, until I found some that I did. But I actually had to fly back here when my husband and I came back for about a week and actually camped out in the unit because at the time we just, needed to get it done. We needed, so we stayed there from, slept there, got up first thing in the morning and renovated in between turns. So we had tenants that had left. They left. We actually asked them to leave because they weren't paying. And we had neighbors, thankfully, that came out. My dad came down in his RV and helped with renovating. So, we were resourceful with what we could do. But it is challenging. I would say, for someone who, is just doing it part-time, it is hard. As I decided to do it more full-time, started taking it like a real business. That's when I actually got involved in Business Networking International, BNI, met contractors that I could trust, that and had some resources of people that I could rely on to actually get stuff done.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I remember I was in the BNI that you're in, and people would ask me, "What do you think?" I said, "You know what? The relationships are invaluable because I could be 10 o'clock on a Saturday night. And if you're Googling a plumber, 10 o'clock on a Saturday night, good luck.
Right.
Because you will never get them.
Yes.
But, you have a relationship like with a Robert Sanchez and you've known him for years and years. There's a lot more chances you're going to get that plumbing thing fixed on a Saturday night.
Robert and I are like this.
I was just
speed dial.
I was going to say that when you talk about rentals and plumbing, you're talking about just two things that go together.
Yep, absolutely.
So, I had two people on my podcast, and I always will talk with them afterwards about strategy and just what's their plans, because these were younger people under 30.
Yeah.
And so I mentioned BNI, and they said, "What do you mean? What is that?" So I want you to speak to our younger people that maybe not, it's not like, I know you and I know what it is. And
the benefits.
It's like it's common thing. We think everybody knows about these things.
Right.
Like, how has it helped you during those initial times when you're navigating the rental business?
Yes.
And how did you see BNI helping you that day?
It's funny because there's not a lot of people in my industry. There's tons of real estate agents in BNI, but definitely not a lot of investors. And I just don't really understand it. But for someone just getting started, like myself, when I got in, I was brand new. Having a team of people that you can rely on, like you're saying, the plumbers, the electricians, the trades, and obviously the chapter that we're in, there's tons of trades. I joined for the reason of being able to have resources that I could go to. And at a moment's notice, if I needed a plumber, if I needed an electrician, if I needed a videographer, anybody like that, I knew I could count on somebody from BNI. And because every week you're showing up and you're building a relationship with these people, they're going to take care of you. They're not going to take advantage. And there's so many tradespeople out there that you'll call them up, they come out and they will tell you need, a brand new water heater, when in reality, maybe it's just a part that could be fixed, and sort of take advantage of you. I think, especially being a female in this industry, you get a lot of people that'll kind of tell you, oh, you need to do X, Y, and Z, and maybe you don't. So when you have a relationship with those people, you're going to get a better, honest answer. So that's actually why I wish initially I got involved. But then I was soliciting my business. And at the time I was doing a little bit more active, like flipping of houses. So I got some of my best referrals and my best clients of properties that I was able to buy because of the warm leads and the people that I knew people that needed my service. And we actually, ironically, one of my chapter members had inherited a property that she had for like 6 years and didn't really know what to do with. and came to me, and we were able to work out something that worked out really, really well for her to be able to liquidate that and take the capital. And we were able to get that house back into a really cool, functional shape, and turn it over to another family so that they could make memories in it. So it was pretty cool. So it became, I was actually a franchisee. I was a Homevestors franchise and had a franchise for 5 years, and I was able to leave the sell. I basically sold the franchise and go out on my own. And because I was getting leads through networking. So,
wow. I mean, I think that's the essential when you understand the warm versus cold leads.
Yes.
There's nothing like it, because I always tell when I'm talking to somebody, the first question that comes out of a person's mouth that is a cold lead, what's your price?
Yes.
I mean, then you're on the defense, because you got to justify your price in 5 minutes, which if you're a value added, relationship building person, you can't do it for 5 minutes. So a warm lead is Pete referred somebody. If Pete is a good guy, you're basically saying, okay, if Pete thought he was a good guy, I just want to see, can he solve my problem? Not what's your price? So I think I have two questions is speak to the relationship part of your business, where what has that meant to the way you have been successful in real estate investment?
Well, it is interesting because if people ask what I do and I tell them I'm a real estate investor, and the short answer would usually be that I flip homes. And I think there's a lot of negative connotation with people that say they flip homes. And there's a lot of people out there that feel like, kind of like the what's your price? It's like they feel like you're going to lowball offer and give them this really low cash offer and basically, I'll say, steal their house, right? And so through relationships, and when you know people, they're able to explain. I think given a little bit more time, you can say, I've got this real estate investor, and she's going to actually be someone that will sit down with you and help you navigate the waters on how to sell your house and help you get the most out of the house, out of the property. And because of the relationships, I'm able to actually get in, and I'm able to work very creative deals that will net the people more money than if they just were to go out and try to sell their house to a cash buyer. But those warm relationships, they know, they trust you, right? And so when they're setting it up, they're usually saying, hey, no, she's going to take care of you, and just hear her out. And so it opens up the door for me to at least even have that opportunity to have that conversation. Whereas if it wasn't through the relationships, you're doing, cold calling, let's just say, or letters or direct mail or billboards or whatever it might be. But there's a short window of a message, and it might get missed, right? And people might not really understand what you really can do. So I think that warm relationship with a client where they're able to really just explain in more detail what we really do. And it just opens up so many doors. It's been huge for me. I mean, I will say from both standpoints of opportunities that I get to help people with their, selling their homes and moving on to their, whatever that next, home might be, to my clients, as far as my tenants, my residents that live in the homes, being able to service them better. Like you said, when there's plumbing leaks or HVAC problems or anything that comes up, I have a team of people that are usually there within sometimes same day or next day. Whereas if I was, again, cold calling a plumber on a, Friday night, it might not be till Monday or Tuesday before they can get me in. Right. So it's huge, definitely huge benefit.
Yes. So what would you say? I know two situations. I want you just to speak to our viewers with this, that they both had, one was a Delta flight attendant. He bought a home in California. So he was flying out of Atlanta.
Okay.
And he had the squatter, the person that moves in and does that, which I know you know about it.
Yeah.
And then another person here locally had one home, and not a squatter, but subleaser, and just right. It all of a sudden, before you knew it, it was somebody that somebody knew who somebody knew who somebody knew. And this was even a management company who didn't see it, and they absolutely trashed the house.
Wow.
So how do you protect yourself from what it seems like we're on the side of the renter, not the people that have the financial responsibility of the house?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough market these days with when you get a squatter, if somebody does get in and stops paying and doesn't want to leave, I don't want to say it's impossible, but it is a process to get them out, and it can be very, very hard and very challenging. So you do want to protect yourself. And so myself as a landlord, I go through a pretty rigorous screening process. Obviously you have your standard, you can do an application with a credit check and, checking their income. But what I do is I'll generally I'll ask for references for, other landlords. I will actually, what's nice is the beautiful thing with social media is you can go look them up online. I usually a lot of times ask them to friend me online, and see, you're looking at pictures to see kind of how they keep their place and, where are they living, because generally squatters go from house to house to house. And, like you said, they trash them along the way. So, I try to do my best to screen them, and it's not something that I can say, it couldn't happen. It definitely could. But I also build a relationship with those people that are coming in my place. So usually the problem with squatters is they're coming in right from the beginning, getting into the house, or there's somebody that ends up moving in and maybe stuff's not getting fixed or things go wrong, and now they turn sort of angry, right? So I do a lot of, I'll just give you an example. I have students that live down here in Kennesaw, and we had a situation where the heat had gone out during some of the coldest days. So I got them a space heater until we get the heat, fixed and things like that. But then as a result, because of their inconvenience, it wasn't but a day or so, but I went and actually did like a pizza party for them, and I ordered pizza, had it delivered to them. So I do things like,
that's good.
Every year if they renew, I give them an incentive to renew. And so they get, you could say like incentives that, hey, if I don't have to find a new tenant and I know what I'm already, they're already there, they're already taking care of the place. I know they pay, and I don't have to spend time painting it again and searching, have that downtime. Give them a discount, or give them, something to stay again. So, so I work on I work more proactively, to set the tone that it's a favorable situation and it stays a good relationship instead of, so like I said, turning ugly. Usually the people that get in there and don't pay and don't leave and all those kinds of things, it comes from the way they maybe were treated through their landlord along the way sometimes.
Right.
Not always, but.
No, I mean, I have never, I've always understood the building relationship with your clients.
Yeah.
But I never thought about the turnover every year can be costly.
Yes.
And so if you can minimize that by doing things like you just said, pizza parties, incentivizing to build that bridge to the next year, you're not moving out, moving in, painting up, replacing this, and spending your valuable time, which I've always felt that people don't put a premium on their time.
Yes.
They just say, oh, it cost me this. And they're like, well, what was your time like? Well, I had it anyway, or I was going to do that anyway. And I think it's an easy way of saying, you have to put premium on your time.
Yes.
Did you, like when you first start out, learn the hard way, or did your mentor sit down with you and say, look, Sheri, if you guys do it this way, it's going to be a whole lot easier. How did you learn those lessons?
A little both. So I did get a mentor. So initially, like I said, I kind of accidentally became a landlord when we moved. So that tenant was there for 10 years. We had some issues here and there with payments, that was over the course of in 2008, the crash. And so they were struggling financially. I worked with them. Again, that's when you kind of, okay, look, I understand you're going through tough times. It's tough for me too, as a landlord. They have to understand that we got to pay the mortgage, whatever. But let's work together on this and let's find something that's going to work for everybody. When being 3,000 miles away, though, I had nobody going into the property. And you, as a landlord, one of the things you think is, okay, no news is good news, right? Well, over the course of 10 years, stuff's breaking, right? So unless it was the AC out, I usually didn't get calls. Well, that can be good and bad. So I learned the hard way by going back 10 years later, realizing that stuff was breaking and they just weren't reporting it. And there was a lot of things that needed to be done. And kind of fast forward short-term rentals. I do Airbnb short-term rental properties as well. And I was working with midterm people that would come in for 30 or 60-day stays. Well, what was happening was I got somebody that came in for like 4 months. And same thing, you're not going to go into the property because you're assuming they're taking care of it. And I learned very quickly that even then you need to get your eyes on the property. You think it's, they're paying a higher price, it's furnished, like what could go wrong? So through trial and error and, things that happened, I was able to learn like, okay, I'm going to include a cleaning fee in my monthly rent. And every month I'm going to have somebody go in and clean the property if they stay for a month, they get one cleaning. It's usually midway and 2 weeks. And then after that, it's at least once a month, I'm getting somebody in the, on the property on site to see if there's issues. So I can hopefully fix them sooner rather than later. But then I did sign up into mentoring. And I have been I'm a eternal, or whatever you call it, student. And so I'm constantly learning. I listen to podcasts. I, have mentors. I have several mentors. I have several coaches that I work with as well that have definitely shortened my learning curve along the way. So,
yeah, I love that. Because I have, and Farrell, who's in and Jim Raps. When I first came with Jim and I saw that Farrell was in and I didn't even know until I think the day before, it was like, so I'm very much just like you. Coaches shorten your learning curve, and the investing in yourself is the key thing. That you invest in yourself, there's always going to be a great return. What would you say to people out there that haven't experienced that mentor or coaching concept? What do you think it has meant to your success by adapting or embracing that?
Oh, I think if you don't have a coach, go grab one. Find yourself a mentor. I wish when I started, some of the mistakes I did make early on, I probably could have avoided had I brought somebody in to coach and work with and mentoring sooner. I would not be anywhere near where I am today if it wasn't for the help of many of my mentors and coaches and, other people who have already gone through. Again, they learn maybe trial by error, and they can now say, okay, these are the things to go ahead and, it's been pivotal in my career. Part of why I originally started as a franchisee was also because there would be peers that were doing what I was doing that I could mentor under, that would take me under their wing. So I wanted to start flipping houses on my own, did one on my own. And thankfully, because Homevestors does a training program, and then they have district advisors that, are there to ensure your success, started me off with, mentors that I would have probably totally fallen on my face and lost a lot of money if it wasn't for that. But I did that for 5 years and then was able to actually go out on my own and do everything on my own. And I had other coaches along the way as well. So yeah, I would tell anybody out there getting started. I mean, there's plenty of free content people can consume now on whether it's YouTube, podcasts, but there's nothing like having a mentor or a coach or somebody that's been there, gone through it, that can hold your hand and kind of walk you through, and it will, I'd say, cut years off of, your success.
Oh, I totally agree. I had about 5 years ago, he's my partner now. I paid him $1,000 a month to be in his mastermind. I was telling my friend, my golf buddy.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You're wasting your money. You can find that information online." I said, "You don't know what you're talking about."
Right.
I said, "You can't find a brain online." I
Right.
mean, it's like information's okay.
Yes.
But it's somebody that
Fine.
thinks and applies it and strategize with you is like invaluable. And it was the best money I ever spent.
Yes.
Because you fast forward 5 years, now I'm his partner. I mean, so you got crazy.
Yes.
How things can develop like that. So let's wind down. I want you to first tell our viewers, how can they get a hold of you?
Probably the easiest thing is you can go on my website, or probably the easiest thing is email. And my email is Sheri, and it's spelled SHERI at Real Results Realty Inc. as in Inc.com. So that's probably the best way. I do take calls as well. My cell, I give it out. I'll go ahead. It's 678-234-8890. Anybody that's looking to get it started in real estate, I am happy to kind of help, kind of point you in the right direction. I do have a couple people I'm working with, mentoring them that are new into the industry and trying to kind of figure out what niche they want to get into. And I'm happy to kind of have those conversations, and at least I've done everything from flipping, short-term rental, long-term rental, mid-term rental, multifamily, you kind of name it. So I can help give you the pros and cons of each.
Absolutely. They're buying your knowledge and shortening their curve. Yes. I mean, this was about 15, 20 years ago when I heard Bill Gates hired a bridge coach. And I'm going like, what? Bridge coach? Is that kind of like, would there ever be a bridge coach? Like crazy. But when you want to shorten your learning curve, you find somebody that's been around the track a few times.
Yes.
And they're going to guide you through the maze of mistakes. Yep. It's better to learn on their mistakes than your mistakes, or shorten that whole curve.
Yes.
So what would you want the one thing that our viewers should take home from their time on the podcast with you?
Well, I think there's a lot of different ways to get there. I mean, real estate is a great investment, and I'm a huge fan of real estate, for whether it's just for investments, whether it's passively or actively. But I think more than anything, the thing that I've learned over the years is no matter what you do, enjoy what you do, love what you do. When you do that, it doesn't seem like work. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things I've learned is, time is valuable. Time is finite, right? You only have so much time.
Yep.
And so again, kind of goes back to learning and having a coach or a mentor to point you in the right direction, so that you can shorten that amount of time and get to where you want to go faster. Because there's a lot of life to live, and I think it's important to have that freedom to be able to do, what you want, when you want, and enjoy what you're doing along the way. So
I love that. Well, thank you, Sheri, for coming over here, because when we talked, we were pretty far away. So thank you for me. Yeah, that was good.
Was good.
Well, it's better than 5 o'clock. So we'll get you home at a decent time. All right. Thank you, Sheri.
Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.